Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at some fun battles from the Remix Cup where a spice pick is absolutely destroying toxic Grasswell teams, and that is Shadow Heatran. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Maki, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now, it goes without saying, Shadow Heatran, not a Pokemon that's recommended if you're looking to get consistent elo gains. However, with Magma Storm and Earth Power, it has terrific coverage for both the Victory Bells and Tropieces of the world and the rock types of Carbink and Bastiodon. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches. And we're off to a good start in Game 1. Swampert into Carbink. Opponent save switches into Shadow Victory Bell. Opponent trying to run some toxic nonsense, and Heatran is here to shut that down. Back in comes the Carbink. The Victory Bell just got absolutely deleted. Earth Power rocks the Carbink. And Carbink's pacing is actually so bad that Heatran is going to get another move here, making it to Earth Power number 2. That's going to force a shield from the opponent, and Heatran has KO'd 1 3/4 Pokemon by itself. We will see the shield from the Swampert, as it is going to be the Moonblast from the Carbink. In the back is going to be Razor Leaf Tropius, and Tropius will immediately be answered with the Shadow Galarian Weezing. Weezing unleashing the play rough. We will see the no shield from the Tropius, and this game is just over. At this range, honestly, you could probably just spam Brutal Swings as the Weezing player, because this Tropius is just running out of HP, and that's exactly what we're going to see. Just farming up to the back-to-back Brutal Swings, making life very straightforward at this point here, and the opponent is going to concede. He knows he doesn't have to hit the bubbles, because at the bottom right, it already showed that the win updated, which meant that the opponent had top lefted on that charge move. We've got a battle of Mud Boys in the next match, Swampert versus Whiscash. The pacing for Swampert and Whiscash is identical, as Whiscash gets the Mud Bomb when Swampert makes it to the Hydro Cannon, but it looks like this Whiscash actually farmed up to a potential Scald. Swampert, of course, going to win that CMP tie by a significant margin. Scald is going to connect, and no Scald debuff comes through. Swampert, perfect energy awareness here, going to overfarm, play to the CMP tie, and pick up the knockout. In comes Walrein. We see a pivot out into Weezing. In the back is Oranguru, the opponent bringing out some spice as well. Oranguru is going to take massive damage from these Shadow Brutal Swings, but in return, these confusions are just melting through the Shadow Weezing. Brutal Swing is going to be shielded. Can Weezing withstand the damage? No, it cannot, as it will get KO'd. Heatran, honestly, is looking pretty good here as long as it can get an energy advantage. Of course, you are just going to have to make sure that the Walrein cannot land an Earthquake. Brutal Swing is going to be shielded. There's the catch onto the Swampert. Very nicely done. And being able to preserve a shield and this health means that there's just not really hope for the opponent at this point. The Walrein, I mean, it's getting close to an Earthquake here, but that Magma Storm landing means it's game over. This is a safe shield for the Heatran. Even if they bait, they can't make the Earthquake. Walrein is going to shield, and yeah, this is only an Icicle Spear, so this is not going to be a problem. Shadow Heatran is glassy. It's not that glassy. That is double resisted. Gonna get the full farm down of the Walrein and the Oranguru to secure the win. Hopping into the next match, and Swampert is greeted with a very familiar lead, as it's going to lead into Carbink. Alright, show us the grass types. Oh, that is not a grass type. That is a Machamp. Machamp has farmed up quite a lot of energy. Stone Edge would hurt, so we will see a shield. And there's the Stone Edge from the Machamp. Farming up quite a lot of energy. Weezing going to be firing off a Brutal Swing. I believe should have thrown it one sooner, because now if they shield, yeah, they can just cap tie with the Stone Edge there. So ideally throwing one sooner would have been preferred, just so that way you don't have to take any of that damage. We're going to see a 0 bubble on the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing is still, oh, it's actually not going to KO. We're going to see an aggressive switch into the Golett by the opponent. They saved the Machamp on 1 HP. Golett going to be able to inflict massive damage on this Swampert. Dynamic Punch will just KO here. They go for a Shadow Punch and a farm down, so they are able to save a little bit of energy. Under no circumstances can this Golett meet the Heatran, so back in comes the Weezing to deliver a knockout with a Brutal Swing. In comes the Carbink. Carbink going to be hit with a Play Rough, and now it's all going to be up to the Heatran. Opponent will have an ability to potentially make a catch. They saved that Machamp, Poor timing from the opponent as they let an entire fire spin for free. Power Jam is going to rock the Heatran. Heatran farming up. There's the catch attempt, but the Karate Chop does not KO. And it's game over for the opponent as Earth Power knocks out the Carbink. And that Earth Power is coming in clutch on the Heatran. Swampert versus Galarian Moltres in the next match. A slightly negative lead for the Swampert. We're going to see a switch out into Weezing. Weezing is going to be answered with Clefable, and if they're switching in the Clefable, then they're almost assuredly on Meteor Mash. Play Rough is going to be shielded, so grabbing an early shield advantage is quite nice, but a Meteor Mash will be devastating. Weezing lets it go. There's the Meteor Mash, and that is a one-hit KO as down goes Weezing. You can bring back in the Swampert. Swampert, unfortunately not in a position where Hydro Cannon will KO. This is a really awkward health range for the Clefable to be in. Clefable lands the Moonblast. That does so much damage. Swampert farming up as much as it possibly can and playing to the CMB tie. Hoping the Mudshots have put it into Hydro Cannon range, but they barely have not. Clefable survives on 1 HP. And now it's all up to Shadow Heatran to try and 1v2 in the endgame with a Fire Spin advantage. Back in comes the Moltres. These Shadow Fire Spins add up so significantly, but the Sucker Punches are just absolutely shredding the Heatran. Heatran is going to be shielding up the Ancient Power, going for the Magma Storm. Will the opponent invest the Final Shield? They're getting good fast move pressure in this matchup. They are going to invest the Final Shield. Heatran now below 25% HP. This is going to be very tough to close out this game. In the back, it's a Weezing. Weezing should be able to outpace, but they throw on alignment. The opponent, they throw on alignment, and now they're going to get outpaced. The opponent had the win con, but they gave a free fire spin to Heatran. The Earth Power is reached, and just like that, that game somehow ends in a win. Terrible lead in the next match. Swampert into Whimsicott. We see the safe switch into the Shadow Galarian Weezing, and that's going to be answered with Alolan Marowak. Alolan Marowak does have access to Bone Club, but it's going to get pretty severely outpaced by the Weezing. Weezing's pacing is absurd, and it has an energy advantage. So Marowak's going to be in a very awkward spot in this particular matchup. Almost two more Brutal Swings ready to go for the Weezing. Weezing able to grab a shield from the Marowak. Marowak is going to throw right away. I honestly like that throw in alignment by the opponent because they're able to force the final shield without having to give up their final shield first. And now they can just choose to let this go. So the opponent is just going to play for shield advantage. In comes Golett. Golett gets a farm down. And that is actually very, very bad. Potentially overfarming more with the Weezing could have allowed a move to be reached versus the Golett, but now Golett gets a farm down and a catch onto Whimsicott, and this game is just over. There's no way to beat the Golett, as Heatran is not going to be able to double up. Heatran, it's going to get close. It's going to leave with 6 fire spins, but you need 8, and you're not living 2 Shadow Mud Slaps. In comes the Golett. Oh no, disaster for the Heatran. As that Fire Steel typing can be great defensively in some matchups, but right there was a massive liability. We move to the next match, Swampert versus the Bastiodon. Opponent save switching into a Charm Granbull. Tell me this is not Bastiodon Double Charm. It's either Bastiodon Double Charm or Bastiodon, a Charmer, and a Razor Leafer. My goodness. Well, they're about to get absolutely cooked by Heatran, so we are in for a show right here. Heatran getting to this Earth Power. Opponent, considering this a Swampert that it's going to be switch locked into it, has no reason to shield, and they get absolutely rocked by that Earth Power. In comes the Swampert. Swampert doesn't have to shield a thing. In the back, opponent has a Charm Alolan Ninetales, so they're running Bastiodon Double Charm. This Hydro Cannon is going to grab the shield. In comes the Weezing, and there's just nothing the Ninetales can do. I mean, they can try firing off moves, but they're just going to get so severely outpaced. Weather Ball is going to be shielded up. Weezing firing off the Play Rough, and at this point, the opponent, I mean, they're just extending the inevitable. Play Rough into the Ninetales. Opponent is going to call the bait. Now they realize it's over, and they will resign the match. We move to the next game, Swampert versus another Bastiodon. Oh my goodness. Is this what the Remix Cup has become? Just nothing but Bastiodon? Oh my goodness. Bastiodon got nerfed, and people still cannot let go of it. Oh my word. All right, well, they safe switch a Swampert, and Maki absolutely did the right thing here, which is if you throw instantly when your opponent switches into a mirror, they're going to be down a turn, and they won't get their full sneak, so now the opponent is always going to have one fewer mud shot in this matchup. At this point, you can just shield, wait the turn, fire off a Hydro, and pick up the knockout. Oh, the opponent gets a catch there. So, nice catch by the opponent. They do get the air slash through. This means Swampert actually cannot bank the move. Going to bring in the Weezing. Weezing getting the catch and sneak. Swampert very close to a move, but does not quite have one. This is the air slash Tropius. So Tropius going to be able to output a little bit of fast move pressure in this matchup. It looks like they're on Brutal Swing because they are going for Leaf Blade when they could be going for Aerial Ace here. Play rough. Gotta do a lot of damage and get the Fairy Wind down. In comes Swampert. Swampert going to take, honestly, a pretty significant amount of damage from the Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing plus the Fairy Wind farm down, and they're gonna top left before they even see the Heatran. All right, next match, disaster lead. Swampert, Shadow Dragonite. Immediate switch out into Weezing, gonna be answered with the Skuntank. And this is not great. The threat of an overheat would do a ton to Skuntank. So I honestly like this bait, and it pays off. Getting the shield is absolutely massive. And then, as the Weezing player, I think you just let this go. Ideally, you want to try and play for a significant energy advantage on the Swampert, because 2 Hydros can KO Shadow Dragonite. So even though it's a terrible matchup, up energy, you can honestly still do pretty well as the Swampert. There the opponent crunched, and that quite surprises me. So I guess they're on Crunch Flamethrower, and they're not on Trailblaze. In comes the Dragonite, and this is exactly how you want to play it. You want to get some chip with the Hydro, and then it's Heatran time. In comes the Heatran. Opponent in the back has Nidoqueen, and Nidoqueen is going to get absolutely cooked by Magma Storm here. They're going to have to use their final shield, and now that they've given up the final shield, and they're going to have to Earth Power, you can just win the game with Swampert. This is a tremendous example of how energy advantage can win you games. Because Swampert is now very close to the Hydro Cannon, the Dragonite is not within 2 turns of the Dragon Claw, so it's just a completely won game, where Swampert, despite hard losing the lead, thanks to 2 Hydro Cannons farming stuff down, is able to still win the game. Swampert versus Swampert, but the opponent does have the Shadow. Shadow, of course, does not impact the CMP tie. It's still going to come down to attack stat. Opponent not going to reveal that information quite yet. Instead, they're going to look to overfarm and commit the shield. Opponent farms up 1 shy of the back-to-back. So this next Hydro, of course, will be the CMP tie. If both trainers go for it, they do, and the opponent is able to win the CMP tie. And that is honestly a little bit awkward. I think if the opponent shields, you just have to go Weezing. Because Weezing, of course, is straight 4 pacing, so you can outpace, and that's exactly what it's going to do. That's a really, really great play from Maki. Understanding that if he stays in, he's just going to lose the Swampert. So switch out right away. The opponent had the Hydro, chose not to throw it. Instead, they just get farmed down. And now they're going to bring in their own Weezing. So far, a mirror team. It's very unlikely they're also going to have a Heatran in the back. Opponent is going to have to go for a Play Rough or an Overheat to pick up the knockout. It is going to be the Play Rough, but Play Rough means you can now bring in the Heatran. There's no threat of an Overheat hitting for massive neutral damage. Instead, it'll just be Brutal Swings. The Brutal Swing is going to land. In comes Pangoro. Pangoro is going to get hit with this Magma Storm. Magma Storm picks up the knockout. Down goes the Panda. In comes the Weezing. Weezing gets farmed down as well. And Heatran putting in, honestly, a lot more work than I thought it would. Oh, here we go. Another toxic team. There's the Carbink lead, and there's the grass type. Hello, Tropius. This is going to be the Air Slash Tropius. Tropius on the save switch. They're running Brutal Swing. So this means they can't actually force a shield if Heatran tries to go for the farm down, and it does. Heatran just wanting to leave with those double Earth powers, and honestly, I cannot blame them. Going to throw 1 in the move, so very nice timing there, and will be able to survive the rock throws, just barely here to make it to another Earth Power. Opponent has to give the shield back, or they're just getting KO'd here. Opponent lets it go, they get KO'd, a Fire Spin lands on the Victory Bell. Victory Bell is on Magical Leaf, but even with the quick pacing of Magical Leaf, nothing is faster than Fairy Wind, basically except for Lock On. And Lock On doesn't really see a lot of play at the moment. Opponent goes for the Hail Mary Sludge Bomb. They realize, yeah, they're not beating the Weezing, and they will concede the match. Hopping to the final match, leading Swampert into Registeel. Oh my goodness, people are really bringing out all of the nerfed mons in this cup. There's a Drifblim save switch, a Pokemon that's actually been buffed, and Drifblim is going to be a real nuisance for this team. Because as you look across the three teams, there's nothing that resists Astonish. And Astonish being a ghost-type clone of Mudslap, it has very good energy generation and incredible amounts of damage. In comes Swampert. This is the Shadow Drifblim, so Hydro Cannon is going to do a ton of damage here. Opponent is going to double shield the Drifblim. They're selling out for Switch, but in doing so, Switch doesn't help them because it's a Swampert Heatran core. They full send a Shadow Ball. Swampert is going to look to farm up and pick up a knockout with the Hydro. So the hope is that Swampert will be able to beat whatever's in the back. That's a Golisopod. That is not what you're hoping to see. In comes the Heatran, and Heatran is going to have to respect a potential liquidation. Opponent goes for the liquidation. There's the switch out to the Registeel, going to fire off the Magma Storm. 2 Magma Storms will be enough to knock out here. The first one is going to do so much damage. Tries for the farm down, but does not get it. But this, honestly, I think is better. Because now you just go for Mudshot farm with the Swampert. Swampert gets the full Mudshot farm down. Golisopod is dry, so Golisopod is not going to be able to make a move. So you can just double up on Hydros with the Swampert, win the game. Opponent does the mental math. They realize they cannot win, and they will resign the match. Overall, it was very fun getting to watch these like fast move pressure heavy, Bastiodon, Carbink, Razor Leaf Charm strategies just get absolutely crushed by Earth Power Shadow Heatran. As I mentioned at the start, this is not a Pokemon that I'd recommend if you're looking to gain Elo. It's more of a fun pick. The submitter mentioned that they did go 16 and 9 with the team, so they were able to go positive with it, but I don't think it's something that I would necessarily rely on for consistent Elo gains. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.